What we've got here is a very tough cut of beef. It's a working muscle, a working tissue. It comes out of the back leg, the hind quarter we call it. As you can see, we took some of the silver skin off just so it's easier to cut and it's easier to work with. And of course, we're brining it. Brining means basically we've put the main ingredient, brine, it's sea salt. So we put some sea salt in there, We have already, so I'll show you, do a little bit of crushed black pepper in there, just a few. Because you're going to keep it overnight, 24 hours, maybe 42 hours. I've even kept them for 72 hours. So we have some celery, diced celery in there to give it some additional flavor. We've got some leeks, which are just basically onions. We certainly have some garlic, which is going to go in there. A couple of fresh or dried bay leaves, it doesn't matter. Bay leaves has a licorice kind of a flavor, which means in Bangla, it's, what's licorice in Bangla? So you crumble it up and you put it in there, and a must for our food here. And perhaps it's a very good combination for any meat or red meat dish. It's rosemary, fresh rosemary. You can just take some of that off, just crumble it up with your hands, and put it in there because you want the essential oils to release from there and flavor your meat. And that is basically brining it. Again, I keep it for 24 hours minimum. Overnight in the fridge is fine. Let's say a rib piece, round rib piece, it would have a marbling in there. So you kind of think that, okay, so what would happen if it was marble? So you need to, put a small shot here, another one here, another one there, and then it kind of rotates around, several shots. Yeah. You might want to turn it over, do it again. Use some of your favorite oils, but stay away from mustard oil because that will interact very poorly with, But by all means, you can infuse your own olive oil with other. Cut it up, and I go like that, and I go. This is a very common technique used by really rotisseurs and farmers when they are cooking in the field. In Greece, Italy, Turkey, anywhere in the Mediterranean, Lebanon, stick that in there. Now if you brine it again, or if you let it rest, and then you want to massage it with some extra virgin olive oil. This olive oil in particular, we get from Greece. It's from a family orchard of a friend, so it is excellent. Okay, so now we've finished the injecting part where you inject the meat with your desired oil. Please be sure it's a good quality oil because as it is, it's red meat. You're going to be enjoying red meat for the next few days. Make sure the oil is healthful and focus on your wellness always. We've mixed some Calabrian peppers and we've injected the meat. Now, the meat has this type of meat. This is a pretty solid muscle, but it does have several parts. One part is narrow and one part is wider. So you'd want to probably take this part off, You can use that for something like a kebab. What's very important is that you notice the pattern of the fibers. We call them grains. And when you cut something like this, be it after cooking for plating or be it when you're preparing, that is, it's very important that you notice the grains and the direction of the grains. So we always say cut against the grains. This you could probably do an excellent kebab with only if you cut against the grain properly. So I'm going to show you. Kebabs are so substandard here sometimes these days, commercial. Everything has become so commercial. So you want to do against the grain, meaning there's the grain, it's going this way, and I've cut against it, so when it's cooked, The muscles and the tissues will tighten up because it's protein, and that is typical nature of the protein, but there's a lot of acid in it already. For this, obviously now you can go into kebab mode after you've cut all of this, and you skewer it with some vegetables, you put it on the grill, more seasoning, and voila, et voila. And for this part here, I would probably at home cut it off like that because the kids are waiting for their steaks. Notice that some of the oil has already gotten there. It is the grain's direction is going this way. This one I would send off for roasting. Skillet, and make sure it's a very heavy bottom skillet. Put a little bit of olive oil on there. A little, just a little, not too much. And of course, once you have that, you want to squish that around a little bit, make sure it's spread nicely. At this point, you want to start browning it off. Why brown? Because you've put a lot of fat into it, and the fat, basically you want to retain the fat and the juices. So when you put a crust on it, by searing it off, what you're doing is you're preventing the oils to come out of them. You know, you want to prevent the oil and the juices. You want them to all be sealed in there through a really dark crust. So there it goes. We must give this piece some attention, and that is the narrower piece. This is really not supposed to make an excellent steak, and those of you who really understand your steaks, I think you're used to maybe a medium rare temperature, which is pink in the middle, slightly bloody, but not red or too bloody, like blood seeping out or nothing like that. In this case, you have to give this a proper crust at a very high temperature, and you'll probably have to cook it to about medium. Nothing below medium well, which means there should be some clear juices running out and slightly pink in the middle, but nothing like a medium rare, which we love in a steak that is sirloin or a tenderloin. So in case of the prime cuts, you need, medium rare for the full taste. For this, this has a very full flavor. You just probably need to cut them into a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 of an inch diameter. We've previously put some leeks in there, so you see some of that on there as well. It's already been injected. We're just showing how to cut some slices off of this because these will be the steak pieces, and just be sure and not use a dull knife, so you can do it at one little slice, one little swap, one little sliding action, and you'll have what is a steak that's off of a cut that is not a very expensive cut, neither is it a very marbled cut. As a matter of fact, it has no marbles whatsoever. Whatever the white parts you're looking at, that is not marble. That is more like silver skin and connective tissue, and that is bound to be sort of tough if you don't treat it right. But why should you not enjoy a steak, right? So now you slice it off like that. Another one here to show you, slice it off like that, like so. That is against the grain, because the grain goes up and down this way, and this is how the grains will show when you actually cut it. That's what you want. The whole point is you should be able to enjoy a steak that is off of a not such a prime cut is what we call them, because this looks just like a tenderloin or a filet mignon, what we call it, but it is not. Many people call it a mock tenderloin, like these babies here. You just want to pound them out a little bit. Don't use a hammer, just go like that. The thickness is about 1/2 inch, at the most 3/4 of an inch. I think you're ready to crust it with some beautiful sea salt. Yeah, we've crusted it with some pepper that we crush it up like that. Put it here. That's about all. Beef goes very well with dark black peppers, or even red peppers, but red peppers will tend to burn off and give you an off flavor. So black pepper is perfect. At this point, you just want to go ahead and sear it off. By searing, we seared off the roast piece. You want to seal in the juices. And for the steak, it's not very thick. So by the time you're finished with searing both sides, for this, at an optimal temperature, it shouldn't take you more than minute and a half, 2.5 minutes on each side to get it to about medium rare. So give it about 2.5 to 3 minutes and you should have a medium steak. And it is cut against the grain. The grain goes this way. We've cut it off of here. So you got the grain that is like that. If you want to tenderize it, you can take a heavy knife. Don't use one of those huge hammers. Just take a knife and go bam, 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 bam. And again, bam, 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 bam. And, you know, cross it like you've done it this way. And you just go like that a few times. We will take our skillet and we will apply just a little bit of oil on there. Extra virgin olive oil. Your meat. Searing off means about 1.5 minutes on each side. 1.5 minutes on each side means don't turn it twice. 1.5 minutes later, turn it over. And otherwise what's going to happen is already, as I said, this is a tough cut of meat. Not bad, tough. So what happens is the meat, the juice, all of that's going to just run out of there. Once the crust is not formed and you're turning it over and over again, you're gonna have a very, very, very dry piece of meat. You just want to turn it once and that's it. So this is done. We're gonna turn it one more time and we are through. So this thing has reached about 125 Celsius. And 125, 130, this is not enough. You want to cook it. When you insert something like this, a meat thermometer, you want to cook it at about 165, which will make it medium well. Temperature comes out to about 125, 130, which means this is probably just about medium rare in the middle. You want about 20 more degrees to go up, so it'll be about, you know, medium. This has tremendously tightened up, and you need to give it a rest time of about 10 minutes before you slice it up for your guests. Once it's rested, we'll take a look at how this thing looks like. It has come out incredibly beautiful, I think. And there it is. You have some beautiful juices that are running out of there. With a little more relaxing time, I think it'll be even more beautiful. So you want to slice this off in very, very, very thin slices, like so, yeah. And because I'm cutting against the grain once more, you see, the result is with the brining and everything, it just tears off beautifully. That is the end piece. That is going to be tougher. As you cut through the middle, you're going to find that it is going to be more towards the medium rare or even rare. So let's take a look at that. Yeah, that is a rare right in the center. Because it's a big piece, you've got some medium rare. And I think, yes, as I said, about 20 more degrees, you're good. Yeah, it's a perfect piece of beef. Makes a big difference. So 72 hours can make all the difference. You want to sharpen your knife. Never use your good knife on a piece of concrete or, you know, I don't know, stone. Just use a steel is the best thing for it, because you want very smooth edges. Nothing dulls a knife more than steak. It's a chicken breast that actually dulls the knife the most. It's Eid-ul-Adha. You'll have a lot of red meat, and you're gonna have a lot of bones that will be coming out of your different cuts. Save the bones, very important, because everything we have, everything we eat, everything has some sort of sugar in it in any form, which eventually becomes glucose. These also do. Meat actually has a lot of, you know, dietary sugar in it. These bones and meat, you want to save them. Even it's like bristles and connective tissues, you want to save them. And magic happens when you sear them off in your oven, brown them off, that is. Don't burn them. Just make sure they reach about that kind of a brown color. Actually, this one is perfect. That's a perfect brown. And you add your favorite aromatic spices, such as we've used some tomatoes, fresh tomatoes. We've used some thyme. We've obviously used some garlic here. Let's see, that was a piece of garlic. So we use all of that, some onions, and what you do is you just take your browned beef bones or whatever the bones are, put that into a pan, Okay, and at this point, you're welcome to add a few more aromatics, again, fresh to refresh this whole thing, such as a few pieces of garlic, maybe a stem of rosemary, okay, a couple of bay leaves, a few peppercorns, and you just want to submerge all of this into water, just plain water. No salt at this point at all. This bone has not been treated with any sort of salt. So you want some fresh water, you want to fill it up to the top, make sure the bones are submerged at a very, very low temperature. You want to keep simmering it, not boiling. You want to keep simmering it, and you're going to find some bubbles that come up. You will have to take a spoon and be very gently taking off the bubbles, and the sort of, with the bubbles you'll find some solids, just take them off. It's the same thing that happens when you're cooking dal in particular. You have some bubbles and some solids that come up, and you need to sear them off. You need to skim them off. This one got a little bit done. How can I tell it's time to take these off? Because it's kind of gone, you know, turned into a cup rather than a coin. I think here was the kebab cut. You're going to find that particularly good. I believe they're done. We're going to cut them up and see. One thing I want to point out, if you have a heavy bottomed skillet, you're going to have some beautiful caramelization here, meaning all the sugar that came out of the meat and the savory vegetables, they're going to gather on the bottom. In our language, we call it deglazing. You can deglaze with just water. You can deglaze it with a no salt added stock, and then adjust your salt and pepper later. But you would want to deglaze it, and this liquid that's there, you know, leave that there. Reduce it, strain it if you want a finer sauce. Add a pat of butter onto it, cold butter, so you can whisk it up. Adjust your salt and pepper. Pretty much ready to go with a beautiful classic French brown sauce.